Welcome to the Dignity and Respect training module for the Community-Based Living Arrangement Certification process by the State of Nevada's Bureau of Healthcare Quality and Compliance. Dignity and respect can mean different things to different people at different times, but some general definitions can help guide your decisions and actions when it comes to your clients in a community-based living arrangement situation. Dignity can be defined as the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect, or a sense of pride in oneself, or, most simply, self-respect. Respect, meanwhile, whether internal or coming from others, is a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. So let's quickly run down the topics that we'll cover in this training. We will discuss the client movement and how it pertains to the respect and dignity issue. We'll talk about language and labeling, including the use of person-first language. To further discuss choice of words and language, we'll discuss conversation etiquette. We'll discuss stigma and actions. And finally, we'll talk about creating a culture of recovery within your community-based living arrangement home. For a little historical perspective, the client movement started like many other civil rights movements, with individuals who were tired of being treated without dignity or respect. Like African Americans and women, individuals with disabilities got organized during the 1960s and 1970s. They did this because for decades prior, people with mental health challenges were denied their basic civil liberties and suffered systematic, inhumane treatment. This included spending a lifetime locked up in state hospitals. Their organization efforts resulted in new laws that limited society's ability to commit them against their will, and led to an approach where these individuals were released into the community where they were integrated while being treated. Our choice of words can be a very powerful thing, and when talking about people with mental illness, that choice of language can lead to a person being labeled in a certain way, or feeling a stigma associated with the condition they're coping with and being treated for. Think for a minute about these labels: schizophrenic, bipolar, depressed. When you say these words, what images come to mind? Are those images positive or are they negative? Are they hopeful or hopeless? A stigma is a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, a particular quality, or even a particular person, and in our society, that stigma is very real for anyone who is diagnosed with a mental illness. Because of this stigma, people with mental illness are likely to avoid treatment. This stigma can, and very often does, lead to fear and mistrust of, or even violence against, people with mental illness. If they do not become a victim of violence, people with mental illness often endure the equally damaging effects of prejudice and discrimination against them because of their diagnosis. We mentioned choice of language and how it can lead to stigma, which is why you're encouraged to adopt person-first language. Person-first language emphasizes the person, not the disability, in order to promote respect, dignity, and understanding. We mentioned terms such as schizophrenic and bipolar, and while these terms may be clinically accurate, there's a time and place for that language, such as in case notes. And then there's a time for person-first language. And that time includes the day-to-day, one-on-one interactions that you will have with your clients in your CBLA environment, which for them is home. Some not so obvious words to avoid when adopting person-first language include emotionally disturbed, manic, mental, deranged, loopy, out of it, demented, high or low functioning, delusional, schizophrenic, and of course, crazy. In those day-to-day interactions we mentioned, you'll want to work on your conversation etiquette. Some things to be mindful of include your tone of voice. Are you being harsh or abrupt? Are you being sarcastic, mocking, or mimicking? Are you being condescending or demanding? You should also be mindful of your volume. Are you being too loud, which can be especially bothersome to some people, or are you actually yelling? We've already mentioned your choice of words and how it can be powerful because those words make statements about how we feel, and those words form beliefs and feelings that turn into actions. When you use clinical language, you can separate the illness from the person. So instead of saying he's schizophrenic, you might say he has schizophrenia. In addition to your choice of words is your choice of body language. To some folks, you're being disrespectful or simply standoffish and unwelcoming if you don't make eye contact or if you stand with your arms folded in front of you. When being mindful of your conversation etiquette, evaluate your own personal manner. Are you coming across as a boss, parent, or some other authority figure? Another thing about language, and this time we literally mean the language in which you're speaking, your native language might not be English. And if that's the case, we encourage you not to carry on conversations in that other language in front of your residents who don't speak it, as this can make them uncomfortable or even paranoid. And whether or not in a language understood by your residents, avoid having personal conversations either on the phone or in person with friends or coworkers. Your time should be spent supporting your clients or in conversations that involve them. Here are a few more conversation etiquette tips to keep in mind when dealing with your clients. Do not speak for them unless you ask permission to do so. And before even asking permission, give your clients time to communicate and express themselves on their own. When your clients are expressing themselves, listen to them and show an interest in what they're saying. If for some reason you don't understand them, tell them so and ask them to repeat themselves, or ask them to write it down, or show you in some way what they're trying to say. Here are some don'ts for when talking to your clients. Don't use terms such as crazy, lunatic, manic depressive, low functioning, psychotic, or refer to a person as a serious mental illness. And do not ever tell a person they can never work and that their main purpose is to stabilize. Again, this focuses on the condition rather than the person. We've covered numerous things not to do, so now let's talk about things you want to do and say. Let's start by using respectful language at all times. When speaking to your clients who are dealing with disabilities, focus on their abilities rather than on their limitations. And if you hear someone expressing a stigmatized attitude, tell them and ask them to stop. Finally, to invoke a little bit of the golden rule, treat individuals in your care the way you hope others would treat someone you care about. We mentioned earlier that a stigma is a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. But here are some guidelines that can help you and your staff reduce the stigma associated with mental illness. Remember that a mental illness is a disease, and as a community-based living arrangement provider, you're helping individuals combat their diseases. Also remember that people are diagnosed with a disease such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or a depressive illness, and that they are not schizophrenics, or bipolars, or depressives any more than a person is a cancer, or a person is a heart disease, or a person is a COPD. As you're helping your clients combat their disease, remember that anyone can suffer a mental illness and still resume a very normal, productive life. You will likely have clients with varying diagnoses, and with that, you or your other clients might be inclined to think that one diagnosis is better or worse than another, but that's not the case. And whether you've received a mental illness diagnosis or not, we all face challenges in life. Some are just different, or maybe a little more challenging than others, or maybe just require a little more help than others. Here are a few facts for you to keep in mind regarding the stigma surrounding mental illness. First, it's more common for people to have mental health challenges than you probably think. Second, the stigma surrounding mental health problems discourages people and their families from seeking help for those problems. Also because of this stigma, people would rather say they committed a petty crime and spent time in jail than admit to being in a psychiatric hospital. Finally, that same stigma exists within our own circles and can cause people's own families and friends to turn their backs on them when they are facing mental health challenges and need them the most. Now that we've discussed quite a few issues, try a little self-reflection on the way you treat others. Ask yourself a few questions. Do you speak in even tones? Do you use positive terms? Do you use personal terms? Do you correct others openly? Does your voice tend to become loud and harsh? Do you use labeling terminology? And does your demeanor have that human touch? Here are some more questions to ask yourself as you think about your personal communication style and possibly making some changes. Do you make eye contact when speaking to others? Do you ask rather than tell individuals what to do? Are you actually listening to others as they speak? Do you ever speak about someone in the third person as if they're not standing there? Do you share personal information about people with others who don't need to know it? And do you reinforce to your clients that you're supporting them as their own decision maker? While on paper, a community-based living arrangement provider offers flexible, individualized services designed to help people with mental illness and related conditions to maximize their independence, you are so much more than that. At different times, you will be your residents' teacher, advocate, mentor, supporter, leader, cheerleader, role model, problem solver, team player, partner, and a cultivator of a positive living environment. But also remember that with all these roles that you play, it's not your job to, quote, fix the residents in your care. Speaking of what your job is not, you're also not your resident's boss, gatekeeper, guard or jailer, parent, disciplinarian, the police, a judge, a dictator, or a caretaker. Let's review some of the things that you want to be mindful of. First is asking permission. Although you're in a support position for your residents, you still need to ask their permission to do things such as enter their bedroom, help them with personal hygiene, talk on their behalf if they're having difficulty expressing themselves, help with transferring, such as from a wheelchair to their bed, etc. You also want to be mindful to honor and support people's differences. You do this not by imposing your own beliefs or way of life on the people you're supporting, and do not take the attitude of, I'm the professional, so I know what's best. Instead, you want to provide your residents with options and education, allowing them to make choices on their own about their recovery journey. And you want to follow each client's individualized support plan. By doing so, you will be supporting each individual's effort to grow and develop skills that will create within them increased self-esteem and a greater level of independence and control. Now let's talk about creating a culture of recovery within your community-based living arrangement environment. The New Freedom Commission on Mental Health, which was formed by President George W. Bush and issued its report in July 2003, put forth a vision that a future when everyone labeled with mental illness will recover, and to do so, the care they receive must focus on increasing clients' ability to successfully cope with life's challenges, not just on managing symptoms. By providing people with mental illness a supportive living environment within the community, you're a part of this vision. If you're going to create a culture of recovery, what exactly is recovery? The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration defines recovery as a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. Recovery is a continuous, lifelong endeavor, so it helps to think of recovery as a journey, not as a destination. When creating this culture of recovery, you'll be supporting individuals' efforts to have meaningful lives. This includes meaningful activities and work, the details of which will vary from person to person. You'll want to support and encourage them to be as independent as possible. This also means each client will be able to direct their own lives and make choices each day. You'll support clients' efforts to have meaningful relationships and to live a life of purpose, whatever purpose they may choose. So how is recovery linked to respect and dignity? Well, the recovery process provides individuals with hope, and it fights the internal stigma that mental health clients feel once they are diagnosed. Also, a key element in recovery is the presence of people who offer hope, understanding, and support, and who encourage self-determination and self-actualization. Enhancing your client's sense of self-worth will increase their self-esteem, which leads to many other benefits and improvements in other aspects of their lives. You can do this with little actions, such as dishing out compliments, such as on a job well done, on their appearance, or on accomplishing a task, and through encouragement and support for each individual's dreams and wishes, up to and including achieving those dreams and wishes. Each client's individualized support plan should contain those dreams and wishes so that everyone on their team can participate in making them come true and enhancing that individual's sense of self-worth. Furthermore, health professionals believe that individuals with a mental illness can recover, regardless of their diagnosis. This thought alone that recovery is possible can go a long way towards enhancing the person's sense of self-worth. Also, you'll want to support these individuals' efforts to be active and take control of their lives. This support will help the client proclaim that he or she is a responsible person. It encourages them to build skills while building self-esteem and self-worth, and promotes the independence they need to one day live on their own. This is the end of the Dignity and Respect module in the training required for State of Nevada Community-Based Living Arrangement certification. Please return to the course and take the test on this module. Upon passing it, you will have access to a certificate of completion for both printing and downloading.